Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the YouTube videos we've been doing. It's a weird story how this all came about, but I'll give you a few details and fill you in on how it's all come about. The owner of this vehicle, Paul Kelly, who you've obviously seen helping me through the process, asked me to do this build. Here I built a couple of cars for him before, a 49 Mercury and a 37 Ford pickup, and a pretty radical combi van that started off as a destroyed, rusty vehicle, and it came out beautifully. So this story starts with Paul approaching me to do this car. He had bought it as a rusty four-door from down south. He transported it home and showed it to me. I loved a couple of the features on it, the lines, the shapes of the doors, the V-butted windshield, which is probably one of the first cars to come out with a V-butted windshield. The trunk, of course, was terrible. The back of the car I wasn't crazy about, except the long swooping fenders. I made it into a two-door. We stretched the doors 2 inches. We put in a new floor. We fitted the new engine, suspension. We did basically everything we could before we could chop a car. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to get here to do the chop, so me and Paul went ahead, and we thought we'd capture it all on video anyhow, and so this is how the YouTube channel has started. I hope you enjoyed what we've been doing lately. So for the first couple of episodes we had a videographer recording everything. Unfortunately they didn't know a lot about building cars and missed a lot of the details. I'm going to be wary of this in the future and make sure the details are captured. My son Alex is taking over filming from now on. He edited the first couple of episodes. I think he's done an outstanding job, and he's going to be my cameraman from now on. So this episode we're going to try and catch up. We've used a lot of our footage and a lot of stills, and I think they show a bit more of the detail of how it's being done. I'm going to talk about what's happened in the photos and fill you in on some of the details. And I've got to say thanks for all the great comments. I'm catching up with some old friends there. They're sending me messages of encouragement, and you can help too. Just share and subscribe. So, as you saw in the last video, we were moving the trunk frame up. I decided to make whole new trunk edges because the body had a lot of lead in it, and I didn't like the look of it once we melted all lead out. So here I am making up new boot edges. This would match in with the frame I'd already made. See me here lining it up. I figured it'll be way easier to make new boot edges than try and repair the old body. It's approximately 2 feet longer than the old boot. Then we moved on to making a boot skin for the frame. Here I am testing the pull max out. Between me and Paul we've got 3 pull maxes, so here I'm running metal through just to give me an idea of where to set it. The boot needed a lot of crayon in it after we made the frame. I was going to shrink the edges with a thumbnail shrinker on the pull max and then come back and level it out with doming dies. These doming dies I had custom made for doing large panels, and it does the job quite quickly. I had to measure the crown we needed in the boot, so I made some cross braces. Here I am putting them into the position. This way when we were pull maxing the skin, I could tell how much crown we needed. It was almost like a metal buck. I could lay the skin on, and that would tell me how much more it had to be stretched or shrunk in different areas. This is the finished frame before we started making the skin. It had a edge around it, so I was planning on folding the new skin over on the edge like a factory trunk. Here I'm repairing the old top half of the frame. Here we are roughing out the boot skin, trunk skin. I've already shrunk the edges on a thumbnail die, and now we've run it through the pull max a couple of times already. It's quite rough here, but the more times we run it through, the the tighter it'll get and the neater it'll look. There was a lot of crown in it, so we ran it through a few times. We had the pull max all preset to where we wanted it. You can see the lines. We're putting a bit of oil on there that makes it slide easier through the tooling. You can see how much form it's got it already, and we'd only run it through 1 or 2 times. Compared to an English wheel, this is a lot faster. We'd start in the centre because that's where the main area needed the crown. So we'd start in a circular motion. And you can see the metal there stretching. Looks quite scary on such a large area, but it came out quite well. They can louver, they can dome, fold, cut. The machine I bought that I've got, the guy I bought it off said you can make any panel for a car with it, and he wasn't lying. I was fortunate enough to get a lot of tooling with mine, but this tooling we're using here was made up for doing large panels. You can see how much of the area it's covering very quickly. We'll go in this circular motion for a while, and then we'll go backwards and forwards. Now we've changed direction, we're going backwards and forwards. This really tightens up the panel and straightens it out as well. I think we ran it through about a dozen times and kept checking it on the buck to make sure we're getting enough crown. Here's a shot of the skin. You can see how much it's changed shape from a flat panel. You can see every time we put it through the pull max it's got a little bit closer. Here you can see where the oil marks are on the pull max. I thought I'd put this picture in just to show you what directions we were using to obtain the shape. This is an early photo, but I think it looks quite cool. We're getting closer and closer to a finished product. As it gets to the desired shape, it moves a lot quicker through the machine until there's almost no resistance. Now we're going to play you a clip that's going to show you where we are up to date with the car. We're not too far away from doing final bodywork. 90% of the modifications have been done. Here we are offering the skin up to the frame. We're happy with it, so I'm going to fold the edges and hammer the edges over onto the frame to make it one piece. So this is the boot, the trunk boot. We've used the existing mounts for the hinges. I've put some new inserts in there, they were all rotted out. So I've made new plates for that so we can bolt the existing trunk hinges to it. I've stretched the trunk almost 400mm. Now because the frame's too short, all this had to be replaced. This is all new metal, all the way from here down is all new metal. The trunk skin's all new metal. I'm just making up these pieces now to join the trunk inners back together. I've tacked this side. Now I've been using a gasless MIG welder, which I've never used before, and it does really nice flat tacks. A lot better than the other MIG. So I've been tacking it with a gasless MIG, and then I'll go through and wire weld it with the oxy to finish the joins. This piece of metal here is obviously straight, so we've got to put a curve in it, so we've got to stretch this edge here. The stretcher, as the clamp comes down, it pushes down on the metal and the two jaws pull it apart. You'll actually see the whole piece bend here. I'm just going to go along at even increments, and this is only, that's 7 light hits, and you can see the curve in it already. So we'll just keep working our way through that. this is a really good machine if you're doing sheet metal work to form curves. We've got a shrinker and a stretcher. This is the stretching side, the other side is the shrinker, and it does the opposite. It will do a reverse curve on this. So we'll just take this over, and that there is a nice uniform fit. I'll clamp that up later and go along tack weld it and wire weld the finished part. I've still got to, when I made the new skin, I folded the metal edge over, so I've still got a few shrinks and tidying up to do on these corners to give it a nice even fit. This is the new skin I made for the trunk lid. I just follow this line around and folded the edge to the old trunk lid and the new piece I made. All these pieces of steel are for gapping it while we're fabricating it, so we get the same 3mm gap all the way around. Makes it easy when we're trial fitting it. It still needs to be hammered up. I've got rust converter on there at the moment. Then we hammer it up and do a final grind. This is the trunk now. The new trunk fits in there perfectly with a nice 3mm gap. I've had to make all these gutters. They still need to be finish welded and dressing. We don't know if we're using this fuel filler outlet yet. We're still waiting for the tank to show up. The back of the fenders here were really damaged, but they used to roll around like this. I've made these extensions and then I rolled them back around. All these bottoms were very bad, so I've made up new bottoms. The tape mark you see around the fender is going to be the shape of the fender skirt. So we've reformed this. This was the old rear window surround. We've cut and pie cut it and shaped it all and fitted into the door to make the rear pillar. There was no inner for this, so we're going to weld this in fully instead of running a garnish mould. This has got a nice gap in there for the Bailey channel now. The door trims are going to go up this high. They're going to roll up, we've decided. The inside winder mechanism came off a donor car, so we've just cut the whole assembly out, lined it all up and bolted it into place to the old door frame. So this makes it really easy. We've had to move it back to miss this handle so the winder will go around, but that's a really easy way to do your window winders. Bottom of the rear fender was really damaged, so I've put in a new bottom, new supports to the chassis. I've had to fabricate whole bottoms of these front fenders. They were all gone. This panel here had probably almost an inch of solid lead in it from a bad repair. Both sides had lead in them. The headlights are 39 Chev, but we've trimmed them down so they sit a lot lower, and we put late model buckets into it so we can put steel beam headlights in it. Inside, the two bolts that hold the headlight on also hold the front fender to the support bracket. So we've got two bolts in there that take everything off. So really, they're hidden inside the headlight. The stock hood had rather ugly vents in it, so I've taken them out and welded a filler piece in there, and we're going to do oval portholes in here, so that'll lay in there. We'll cut that shape out and put a beauty line around it, and then a chrome bar through the middle. It's taken off the concept drawings I did at the original time. So I've cut these surrounds out, and the 39 tail light will go inside that, and then this will be formed so it fits the fender there, and these will be dropped in. I think they'll look good, and we're going to do a similar piece like this for the hood, but a lot longer and a lot bigger. So I've used 3mm bits of plate here and then put a 90 on them, so that gives you the level of the trunk and the gap. I'll put them all the way around, and I'll leave them on till the final fitting, and that keeps all your gaps nice and straight.